Hey everyone, I'm Carolyn from TranquilMentor, a registered nurse and creative wellness coach. Today I'm excited to share Call of Duty inspired Purple Mega Gobble Gums. They can be made to display on a shelf, tier tray, or anywhere you like. We'll walk you through the materials we used and how this project came together. For the Gobble Gums, we used PNG images from Etsy, smooth styrofoam 3-inch balls, and printable vinyl from Temu, purple acrylic paint and decoupage clear coat from Dollar General, and Mod-Podge. We went onto Etsy, onto Cloud Dreamily, and we looked for images that would help us instead of having to recreate them. And we found some here, and they are PNGs, very nice quality. And instead of really taking all the time and getting images from Wiki, we decided to do it this way. I've got the 3-inch styrofoam ball, and these are the smooth ones, and I've got my hot knife, and if I can find out where I got that, I'll link it below. But you can use a serrated knife or a foam cutting knife or anything like that, but I decided to use this, and I just have a damp sponge here, and I'm wiping it off from the previous project that I did. It is good to clean it off every time, but I think I forgot. So anyway, it's all set. I made some dotted lines. I took the label and made some dotted lines, and I'm just going to shave a little bit off. I really worked hard on trying to get the images to curve around the sphere, and it just wasn't working. So I thought what I would do is I would just cut the front piece off. I just did a little bit of trial and error. I have a little bit of an edge here that I got, and after a little bit of practice, I was able to hone in on this a little bit better and get that a lot smoother. Also, it really did need to be a little bit smaller. If you look at it here, that's a little bit big. So what I'll do is I'll give it a second chance and I'll do a smaller one. It just doesn't need to be that large. So I'm taking the label again, and this is just a paper label that I had that I practiced with on the Cricut, and I cut that out. And then I'm making dotted lines around it, and I'm just going to cut this one a little bit smaller. Just don't need that much. So just whisk it right across the top. And again, you can definitely use a knife. If you're doing it this way, just of course be really careful. It will burn you. It's pretty hot. I have the camera sped up so it looks like I'm not being very careful, but I am. And then I think this is a much better fit. And what I'll do too is I'll just sandpaper around this area. There's just a little bit of parts that stick up, and I want to get them smoothed off. So I'm just going to take my sandpaper and lightly go over that. And then you can also see, even with the smooth styrofoam balls, they do have some indentations, but the other ones are really hard to work with. You would have to put a lot of Mod-Podge, and I think people use cornstarch and Mod-Podge to smooth the styrofoam balls that are very textured. So these help out a lot. Big difference. I'm going to put some Mod-Podge on this one. What I'm doing is I kind of have to do half and half, and let the first half dry and then go back and do the other half. Now on some of these, that little piece that I have with the holes helps hold these, and you can also use a paint tray, and that'll hold them in from rolling around on your desk. What I did the Mod-Podge on this one, and then I have my Fast and Final spackle. I'm just taking a knife. You can use a plastic one. This is just an old knife that I have around. It's almost like icing a cake, and I'm just filling in this part. You really don't have to do it. The Mod-Podge will cover it, but I just tried that. And then also, as I was saying before, I'm going to just sand this. You have to make sure that this is very dry. I only let it dry for a few hours. I would even just suggest drying it overnight, and not to be in a rush with this part, because you can see I have a little divot in there, and it really wasn't a problem. I just worked around it. But to really get that smooth, it would be better to give it overnight. It took a long time to dry. And I guess it depends on the area that you're in too. And, you know, we're in Florida, and it just seemed like it took forever to dry. So overnight that, and then get it sanded up. And then what I did was, this isn't going to show because there's going to be a label over it. So I took my stick, and then I have that purple acrylic paint, which I get from Dollar General, which is very local and close to my house. It's just purple. I figured if I ran out of it, I could always go back and get it, just try to use as primary as a color as I could. And then now I have my skewer stick, so in my foam underneath, and I can just paint this first coat. It didn't matter if I did, I guess it matters somewhat, but what I did was I did a lot of trials, and I put Mod-Podge on one of them first, and then the purple paint, and then the other one I put no Mod-Podge and just started with purple paint. And really, in actuality, on the left you can see it's a little bit darker, but that was probably maybe 8 coats of paint, and maybe this one's about 6 coats of paint. So either way, I wouldn't worry about the coats of paint, because you can let them dry for a little bit and then go back over them after. I did try a heat gun, and that did help a lot, and it sped things up a little bit. But all in all, just take your time with this and just put the time aside to do these parts, because it does help if they're dry, but there is going to be a lot of coats to cover these up. That's just the way it went for me. Mod-Podge or not, I ended up still putting a lot of Mod-Podge on all of them. And then I've got my decal that I made, and I cut that out on the Cricut. And this is where the GobbleGum B07 Zombies digital download PNG comes in. And this is from Etsy, and it's Creative Dreamly. What I did was I took the images and I put them into Cricut Design Space, and I took a circle of 1.75 inches and I did a slice. So that's why you're only seeing part of that. And also I did an offset on there in white, which you really don't have to do, but I did that, and it does make them look a little bit like stickers. And this is the printable vinyl. Also, you don't have to necessarily do the printable vinyl. You could always do paper, and you can cut them out. You don't have to do them on the Cricut. And what I did here was I just wanted to make a stand. I don't have one yet, and I will print one in the future, but I had some styrofoam laying around, and I thought I would use it. I made marks on here just to try to get a little bit of an idea of what it was going to, how each ball was going to fit in, or each gobble gum. I'm going to need to make a tier tray out of this, because I just like the way that it looks to display them onto a tier. So I'm just making an outline here because I want the back part, the back tier, to be a little bit taller than the front tier. So I've got basically a butter knife now here, and that's really not working. So I have a knife that John made for me, and I'll use that next. But you could also even use a serrated knife or anything that you have that you can donate or designate for foam. Then I'm stacking it up now just to show you how it's going to look. I've got a couple of ideas here, and I tried a couple of different things, but once I cut all this apart, I realized it didn't have a side. So I'm going to take a side from somewhere else, or foam from somewhere else, and just other parts of this item here, and then I'll make a little side for it just so that it's closed in. And I used that 7-7 spray, and I did that outside. It's adhesive, and I did that in addition to some skewer sticks to hold everything together. And it's very smelly, and it's something that you don't want to do inside. So I took it outside and sprayed that foam together when I was trying to piece everything together. And then when I put it together with the skewer sticks, I also previously used that 777 adhesive spray. And I will show that. I'll link that in the description below so that you can see what it is. And then I'm just cutting out pieces. And that's what I do when I make things out of with the spackle. I just cut my foam out that I found. Anything that comes out of packages or anything that I find around the house, I just cut pieces and put them together and mold them. And then you can put all kinds of stuff over the top. You can do spackle, you can do clay, air dry clay. I've seen people do mud. They make some kind of mud. And then what I want to do is I want to take my heat gun and I want to make a little spot for each gobble gum to go. So I took the tin foil and put that around it so I could make some kind of indent. And this looked like it was working out pretty good, but it just didn't melt as fast. But I just did the best I could with it and just tried to make a little indentation so each of the gobble gums had a place to rest into. And then I'm trying again. I've got my heat gun again. And definitely do this in a ventilated area because it's very stinky. And I have a mask on. This is a voiceover. I do have a mask on and I've got a fan on and everything. So I go through and I give this a series of tryouts. I have 2 right now because I'm trying to get an idea of how close they actually should go together. And, you know, with those markings too, that helped out a lot to have the little markings to show where to go. And then I just use these 2 styrofoam balls as references. And then I'm making that second space there. So you can see how they made the little divots for them to fall into place. And what I've seen on Etsy is the trays that they make. It's kind of reminds me sort of like an iceberg or something. And they're all different shapes. Some are black, some are white. And then some people they 3D print a splash for just one of them, and they'll put an extra tier for it at the top. But I'm going to do 4 across and 4 across. And then I'm still continuing on with my heat gun and trying to get those divots in there. And then I just keep moving along and pushing and softening up the foam and making my little indentations. And then I'll go ahead and I'll do that on the bottom row as well. And now I go back to a lot because some of them just kept cooling off quickly. And then I just keep working it in. I'm taking my time, just trying to get that just right. Just little by little, they'll get dented in and they'll get pushed in. And then I decide to try to heat that little edge there. That kind of really didn't work out any different, I don't think. You know, we just give it a try, right? All in all, you know, the more that you kept repeating, the more that I kept repeating, the more that it dented in. And then you can see those 2 will stand up, and I take the rest of them just to see if I can get them to all stay into place. And they do. And I'm also going to take my one-time spackle. It's a lightweight spackle. It's very important. And I'm just going to ice a cake. That's all. I've got my white. The back of my spoon helps me get into these little divots here. And then, you know, we do repeat the same thing on the other side, and we'll eventually glue all that together with the skewer sticks and the adhesive, the spray adhesive. And then the back of the spoon does come in handy. Later on, I do use a flatter knife, like a plastic knife. And then this part, I really didn't have to do. I just think I made it worse. But I'm trying again to push them in. But you really don't have to. It's already got enough of a dent in it. But I'm just experimenting and using my spackle. I've seen people too, as I was saying, they 3D print this stand. I just didn't have a chance to get that done because it was just such a long amount of time for printing. So I decided to do this styrofoam method with what I had around. And I'm just basically icing a cake. Now what you could do here too is you can, when you get done with this and it dries, you can sand it. But I liked the texture of it. I didn't think I was going to. I figured I would kind of just paint it, but I do like the way it came out. And that was for I think you call it armature for my planer. That's what was in there. So I figured I'd put this to good use. And here's where I do the skewer sticks to do the attachment. And then in between this step, I'll have taken it outside and done the spray adhesive so that I can get that to stick together. This one's a little bit long, so I'm just going to take my nippers and cut that off. And then to get these apart, these labels apart, it's better to do some kind of pin or something. And then I'm going to take this out. This is one that's already dry. And I'm going to put a generous amount of Mod-Podge on there. Mod-Podge does wonders with sealing things up. And then I'm going to take my label and take my time and get that just right. And then I'll take Mod-Podge again and get sealed. I'll start from the edges because that helps it not move around, and just go from the edges and then towards the middle. And then I just have a brush that I usually use for Mod-Podge and paint. I just clean it very well. And I'm going to get that label on. And then when it dries, then I can do the other part of it. But I'm just going to rest that into my paint dish. And then the other guy will dry. He's still wet. And then here is our part. We're going to attach everything together. And you have that gap because the pieces didn't all match up. And some of them are kind of dented a little from the heat and all that. So I'm just taking my spackle and icing the cake again. Just getting those little areas all filled in so that you really can't see the transition. But I know some people might not like the texture of this, and I'm sure if you did some sanding and painting, you could get it really just to look like a white tray. But I really did like this texture. I thought it made it look real kind of earthy. And then the back of that knife will just, you can turn it flat if you want to kind of just get it a little bit flatter, because the one side you see has the lines in it. When I'm just taking the back side of it to try to get those serrated lines out. And here you have it. I made the epic sign out of photo paper, doubled it up. And then here is how our GobbleGums turned out on our tier tray or tier shelf. I just absolutely love the way they came out. I did use that Dollar General decoupage sealer to go back over everything because I wanted them very shiny. And that is one coat of that. And I did one half and then let it dry, and then the other half. And then I just have some gumballs from Dollar Tree. And I don't have a 3D printed gumball machine or GobbleGum machine yet. So I just cut it out of paper and printed it on my printer. It's doubled up with foam in between it. And then I'm just going through to show you how the shelf came out. And I'm really excited about how everything came out. I absolutely love it. Everything just came together so nicely. And it just looks like the gum is coming out of the machine. And then that epic sign just really makes it look nostalgic. Absolutely love it. If you're creating Call of Duty inspired art, builds, or custom pieces, we'd love to see what you're making. Tag us on Instagram at Tranquil_Mentor or connect with us on Facebook at TranquilMentor. For more creative wellness and Call of Duty inspired builds, make sure you like and subscribe. Every view, share, and bit of hype helps us grow this community and create more projects like the GobbleGums. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.